great programming, and without further ado, I would love to introduce the CEO of the San Francisco Parks Alliance, Drew Becher.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Really appreciate it. Let's give it up for Sarah. She is just so thanks so much. Well, welcome everyone to the 2022 San Francisco Parks Alliance Public Space Summit, The Power of Parks. We are so happy that you are all here in person today. Yes, it's been about 3 years since we've done that, and it's great to see all of you here. We have a great day planned for you all, and we hope you'll both learn and teach something today. You've all seen those commercials for that wonderful master's classes that all those people teach. Well, you guys are the masters today, and you'll be teaching everyone. And I want you to talk to people, and I want you to teach them and show them the way forward and how to create great spaces and great community within your neighborhoods. I'm going to start off with a small story about myself and sort of bring it back to why I'm in this wonderful business. And I grew up in Southwest Ohio. Ohio's in the middle of the country. For all of you that don't know that, you fly over it a lot of times to go to either New York or one of those great places on the East Coast. And my grandmother always had me over to her house. And it was in Versailles, Ohio. It's spelled like Versailles, but in Ohio we pronounce it Versailles. And she taught me a lot about gardening. It really transformed me and my life more than I really knew. It led me to understand the power of beauty, the power of plants, and the effect the environment has on people. And with that knowledge that I had, when I got to high school, the bus would drop me off at my high school, and I would get out, and it was just so ugly. It would drop me out on this thing, and there were like weeds everywhere. There were no trees. People would basically run from the bus, inside the school, and nothing would happen. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way to do this. So I started a garden club in high school. Yeah, I'm sure I was very popular back then, but I did. I started a garden club, and it's still functioning today. And we planted that high school with trees, garden plants, and it turned into be this oasis. And people started just strolling in instead of running into school. And it fostered community, and more than just being utility. And that's something that all of you and all of us have in common. We are here because we love this city, we love our parks, and we love our community, and we want them to be better. We see, and we all have vision. We see problems and opportunities at the same times. You all have worked tirelessly for many years to make this city better and better. In 2 recent polls that just came out, because of all of your work over the years and great steady leadership and supportive leadership from the Rec and Park Department, RPD was just ranked one of the 7th best Parks Department in the country by the Trust for Public Land in recent ratings. Also, another poll that just came out in the San Francisco Standard is 1,000 residents of San Francisco were polled. And it's interesting, parks and green space came in second only to restaurant and nightlife on why San Franciscans love their city. So that's pretty good. However, when asked what we need to invest in parks and green space was ranked at the bottom of the list. So we sort of have a disconnect there. People love parks and green space, but they don't really want to invest in it, and therein lies the problems. Folks, this stuff doesn't just happen by accident. We need to all be vigilant in the understanding that there is not enough public dollars to make this all happen, and private philanthropy and partnerships with groups like yours is the happy sauce that makes the parks and public space so successful in this city. This is the reason why we're the envy of much of the country and the world. So make sure you let your supervisors know and speak up on the power of parks, partnership, and philanthropy. It's really, really, really important like no other. The power of parks is our story for 2022. It's strong and vibrant, and so is the San Francisco Parks Alliance and our community partner network. Here's a look back at some of the stories and events and people over the last couple of years. I'm going to sort of lump 2 years together because everyone knows COVID is like 2 years, but it seems like a decade. So we survived the pandemic mostly intact, stronger and much better. And we're basically better all around, all of us. We successfully celebrated the 150th anniversary of Golden Gate Park during this time, implemented the new Golden Gate bandshell programming. We worked with the San Francisco Botanic Garden, the Rec and Park Department, to merge the Conservatory of Flowers, the Botanic Garden, and the Japanese Tea Garden under the Gardens of Golden Gate to make it easier for all citizens to enjoy those three great programs. Created the first visitor center in Golden Gate Park. Imagined and implemented the most successful event during COVID, Entwined, that was right here in Golden Gate Park, with over 100,000 visits each year. We launched a Heart Your Parks campaign, which celebrated parks and just the amazing thing they've done during COVID. We're celebrating that again this year. We put a Ferris wheel in Golden Gate Park, and a lot of people love it. Launched a new capital campaign for Crane Cove Park in partnership with the San Francisco Parks. We launched the first of its kind, basically on the West Coast, of the Equitable Development Plan with our partners at the Trust for Public Land, the Rec and Park Department, and APRI for the new $150 million India Basin Park, which we currently have over $100 million raised for that project. We completed fundraising for our Let's Play SF initiative, which is invested in 13 most needed playgrounds around the city, and opened 6 new playgrounds during COVID throughout the city, with 3 more on the cusp of opening up. Successfully opened the new Goldman Tennis Center right here in Golden Gate Park. See, we have a lot of tennis players or pickleball players, or both, right? Invested in SOMA, in the great streets in SOMA to help with the issues going on there with Moss Metamorphosis and Stevenson Alley. We created a new strategic plan for the organization, implemented a new accounting system for our organization, adopted Salesforce for the Parks Alliance, created a new brand and logo for the Parks Alliance, and the Parks Alliance celebrated our 50th anniversary with a refreshed website, special logo, and our Faces and Places campaign that's been hugely successful, and you can see that in the gallery, out in the gallery area here today. We invested in a new HR system, and we also have really invested in our community partner network and partner program with new innovative technology such as Bill.com and new fiscal service agreement that's easier to understand and lays out our services in a much easier way. We brought on 2 new major capital partners, the Greenhouse Project, which we'll hear about later today in the Portola, and then also Harvey Milk Plaza in the Castro, which we'll hear about as well. Both of these projects are investing about $50 million into our city. We supported and opened up and upgraded community partner network projects from one end of the city to the other, such as the Glen Park Greenway, North Ridge Community Garden, Honey with a Heart, Urban Riders, and a lot of work with Sutra Stewards in the Sutra Forest. We are here to support you and your projects and help you bring joy and hope to your neighborhood. We are all much better and stronger acting together than individually, and we can help change the narrative in San Francisco, one garden, one place, and one park at a time. We could not do this without support from all of our donors and our wonderful, amazing volunteer board. This board, we have a couple of our board members here today. If you want to raise your hands, I would really appreciate and give them a round of applause. And our board is led by one of the most amazing women that I've ever worked with. And she's a mom, she's a professional, She does just so much for this organization, and I don't know if I might have less hair if it wasn't for her. It's my pleasure to introduce our chair of our board, Liz Farrell.
Great. Thank you, Drew. Welcome, everyone, to the Public Space Summit. It's exciting to be here, and especially, as Drew said, in person for the first time in several years. On behalf of the Parks Alliance Board of Directors, I want to welcome you and I want to thank you for all the work that you are doing in our parks and public spaces to make them better. We are all here because we share a love for our parks and public spaces. And by working together, we can ensure that they are welcoming and belong to everyone. I would like to thank the staff of the Parks Alliance. We have an amazing staff at the San Francisco Parks Alliance, and I would like to thank them for all their hard work and making today possible. Let's give them a round of applause. I especially want to thank Drew, whose leadership, vision, and passion for the mission of the Parks Alliance is unrivaled, and it's a joy to work with him. So thank you, Drew. I also want to thank our amazing volunteer board of directors, many of whom are here today and will be trickling in throughout the day. I am grateful and honored to work with all of you, so thank you. Today, the Public Space Summit is one of my favorite events that the Parks Alliance puts on. And it's even more wonderful today that we are in person. It's a day to listen and to learn and to hear about all the amazing things that our community partner groups are doing. So today, let's listen, let's share, let's connect, and let's cultivate relationships, because we all know that we are stronger together. I couldn't think of a better way to kick off this summit than with this video that you're about to see. This is a wonderful glimpse into the amazing work that our organization has been doing for over 50 years. So, thank you.
You could have fallen in love with any city, but you fell in love with San Francisco. Not for how it looks from far away, but how it feels up close. The city that shaped you is the city you are shaping. For over 50 years, SF Parks Alliance has been partnering with communities in the city to create better parks and public spaces. In that time, we've learned that the best ideas come from people like you, with a vision and love for our city. Join us in shaping the future of San Francisco.
I want to send a big shout out to our external affairs team who put that together. So congratulations. And many of the projects that are represented in this room today were up there. So thank you so much for the ability to make that video of all your amazing projects and what you guys do each and every day. You know, we would not be here if it wasn't for the Rec and Park Department. The Rec and Park Department here in San Francisco is under the leadership of an amazing individual, Phil Ginsburg. He's really a person in this room that probably needs no introduction, but I will go ahead and introduce him because I sort of like him. Kidding, really love him. Phil has been, he is actually, I think now he is the longest tenured big city parks and rec department director in the country. He has really transformed the Rec and Park Department here in San Francisco. You all may or may not remember back, 12, 15 years ago when it wasn't as high performing and not getting the highest grades in all of the controllers reports and everything that it is today. And it's really, as we talked about earlier, it's about having vision, it's about looking for those opportunities, and it's about making things happen, and it's about listening to community. And Phil does all of those things. We might have differences every so often in the way we want things done or how quickly things happen, but in the end, what has come out of it is really an amazing organization filled with amazing people that Phil has put together. And I'm glad to call him my friend. I'm glad to call him our partner, like many of you are. It is my pleasure to introduce Phil Ginsburg, the General Manager of the Rec and Park Department of San Francisco. Phil?
Wow, I wish my mom was here. Thank you, Drew, for that introduction and really more importantly for your creative and passionate leadership, your collaboration, and your friendship. Friends, it's exciting that this conference is back after its COVID-induced hiatus, and that video, I don't know about you, but it made me a little verklempt. And if you don't know what that word means, look it up. The power of parks. If the pandemic had any bright spots, they were parks. Parks gave us a chance to connect with other people, to exercise our bodies and clear our minds, to feel something like freedom in a world that felt increasingly restrictive. All around the world, urban park use has never been higher. And because parks were there for people when we needed them most, there's been a seismic shift in the way people see their neighborhood parks. We all know they're not luxuries. They're not just sweet amenities. It's not just about a bouncy house and a birthday party, as great as that is. Parks are utilities. They are finally being recognized as essential to our physical and our mental health, to our sense of safety, for jobs and economic development, for cities becoming livable again. Yep, parks are having a moment, and we are doing our best to use it. The moment has provided us an opportunity to try bold new things with our public spaces, to open new parks, and to gain support for projects that benefit everyone. One of the world's foremost architects, Jan Gehl, said, "Culture and climates are different all over the world, but people are the same. They'll gather in public if you give them a good place to do it." Pretty simple. Here in San Francisco, thank you, Drew, for so acknowledging our park system is indeed thriving. And a main reason for that is partnership. Some of our most exciting projects would not exist without advocacy and philanthropy, and more specifically, without our partnership with the San Francisco Parks Alliance. You can see the fruits of our partnership across the city, and I hope you're as proud of it as I am. And Drew actually did a really good job of summarizing them, because you're going to hear some of the same projects. But you see our partnership in the neighborhood playgrounds that have been transformed into dynamic hubs for creativity and family life through Let's Play SF. And thank you, Brian Baker, for all of your leadership. A lot of people were involved in this project, but I know this was very passionate for you, so thank you. That program, Let's Play SF, is changing the lives of 20,000 children across San Francisco, giving them and their parents access to safe and creative spaces to thrive. Yes, you see it in the Lisa and Douglas Goldman Tennis Center right here in Golden Gate Park, the best public tennis facility in the country that hosted San Franciscans on its tennis and pickleball courts over 25,000 times in just its first year of operation. You see it during the holidays, when right here in Golden Gate Park, Entwined and Winter Lights have given our city a reason to smile and come together during the holidays. You see it at the music concourse where, yes, a Ferris wheel, a new music band shell hosting free concerts 4 days a week, and a temporary art installation challenging us to reckon outdated and racist monuments have allowed us to lift every voice. You see it at the Great Walkway and our Slow Streets network. You see it on Mount Sutro and in the heart of the Bayview, which has a clean and healthy shoreline for the first time in decades, thanks to our India Basin project. And as Drew noted, you see it right here in the new gardens of Golden Gate Park, where, thanks to the San Francisco Parks Alliance's historic stewardship and investment, and its commitment to always putting best practices first, the Parks Alliance worked with the Botanical Society and Recreation and Park to create the Gardens of Golden Gate Park, putting these three treasured gardens, the Conservatory, the Tea Garden, and the Botanical Society, on the map as the greatest botanical campus in the country. In large part, through our work with all of you, the Trust for Public Land and other partners, San Francisco Parks have benefited from $150 million in philanthropy over the last decade. This financial support has allowed us to renovate more parks and playgrounds, make those renovations better, engage in deeper community connections, and ultimately better serve the citizens of San Francisco. Nelson Mandela once said, "May your choices reflect your hopes and not your fears." Since we were last together, despite the pandemic and all of our city's challenges, parks are a source of hope. And we actually have a lot to celebrate. And I just want to highlight a few projects for which I'm most proud that we couldn't have tackled without you. Our partnership has allowed us to launch the kind of transformative environmental justice project that comes along once in a generation through the India Basin Waterfront Park Project, which will soon launch phase 2, the construction of the first part of the park at 900 Innes. When complete, the park will deliver miles of trails, a restored shoreline, and a world of recreation to the Bayview. It will transform a former industrial site into a beautiful and modern park with a focus on public access, social equity, resilience, and restoration, and it will actually fill in the last gap in the Bay Trail. It's guided by an equitable development plan, a first for our city. It's a roadmap created alongside the community that ensures that all of the benefits of the project stay in the Bayview and serve the people that live there now. It lays out our commitments to the Bayview, from vocational training and jobs, building the park, to entrepreneurial opportunities once the park is built. It also empowers the community to decide the type of recreation they need and want. For example, they identified a need for learn-to-swim classes. We're building a waterfront park, after all. Our mutual goal is for every child in the Bayview to feel comfortable and safe in the water, so we started a program to give free swimming instruction and transportation to children from neighborhood elementary schools. Our first class graduates tomorrow. And on the other side of our city, another new park, the largest in San Francisco's urban core since 1983, just opened in Russian Hill. Thank you, Liz Farrell's husband, Mark Farrell, for his advocacy on that. It was a partnership between our department and the community who raised the money to build the park and gave it to the city. If you have not been to Francisco Park, go. It's extraordinary, it's inspirational, it is what's best about our city. The views are unrivaled and the joy is palpable. Then, at the beginning of the lockdown, we closed that little road out there in Golden Gate Park to vehicles to try to free up space for social distancing. We gave people a good place to gather, and gather they did. They walked and rolled and danced and connected. Life blossomed right there on the road. And people didn't want it to end, which brings me to another Gell quote. A good city is like a good party. People don't want to leave it early. And that may be the biggest silver lining of the pandemic. A permanently car-free JFK Drive in Golden Gate Park. Car-free JFK has been a dream for generations. And as of last Saturday, thanks to an enormous community effort, we now have a joyous, safe, and inclusive promenade for walking, biking, and rolling. More than 10,000 San Franciscans engaged with Rec and Park and MTA during our 8 months of outreach. That extraordinary input has led to more than 45 different access improvements to ensure that everyone can enjoy this beautiful new promenade. Yep, parks, they're having a moment. One should never be their own historian, but maybe, just maybe, this is the golden age of parks and public spaces in San Francisco. If it is, you all should feel very proud. Fighting for parks is hard, let's be honest. We've taken a few hits and we've come under some criticism from a few who frankly either don't understand parks or don't care about them very much. But that's okay. Fred Shiro, a Hall of Fame hockey coach of the 1970s Philadelphia Flyers, the place of my birth. Those Flyers were known by some as the Broad Street Bullies. I like a good fight every now and then. Anyway, Fred Shiro once famously said that the best way to avoid criticism in life is to do nothing. But that's not who we are. We care too much about our city, and as park advocates, we are united in our understanding of the important role parks play in creating healthy, equitable, and thriving communities right here, right now, for our parents, for ourselves, and most importantly, for our children. So I want to thank the Parks Alliance for bringing us all here today and for all you do to support America's best park system. Today is only one day in all the days that will ever be, but what happens in all the other days that ever come can depend on what we do today. Great cities do great things, and I know we can do them together. Thank you, everyone.
That's why we have a great park system here. Thanks, Phil. Really appreciate it. It is now my pleasure to introduce our keynote for this morning. And her name is Carolyn Johnson, or CJ, like she likes to be called. CJ is the Chief Executive Officer of the Black Cultural Zone, CDC. CJ joined the East Oakland Black Cultural Zone Collaborative in 2019 as its first executive director and is the founding CEO of the Black Cultural Zone Community Development Corporation, which was formed in 2020 by the collaborative. She has more than 30 years' experience in entrepreneurship and business management, nonprofit operations, finance, commercial real estate, including development, financing, and brokerage. She is a native of Oakland, born and raised. CJ is an entrepreneur and has worked directly with entrepreneurs and small business owners at several leading technical assistance providers in the area, including Alameda County Small Business Development Center. As manager, she created the consulting and grants program at Community Visions, formerly the Northern California Loan Fund. As its first director, and was also involved in underwriting, funding, and providing consulting expertise for the cultural hubs and nonprofit commercial development projects in San Francisco, including the Museum of African Diaspora. As broker, she has completed over $250 million in investment sales transactions and has leased hundreds of spaces throughout the Bay Area, particularly in Oakland. Most recently, she was the broker and director of commercial real estate at the East Bay Asian Local Development Corporation, a leading Bay Area affordable housing developer. Currently, in addition to her role with the Black Cultural Zone, she is a tenured professor at the College of Alameda in the business development and has launched the Prialta Community College District's first fully online entrepreneurship certificate program. Wow, we are so happy to have CJ with us today to tell us a little bit about the Black Cultural Zone CDC. CJ?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. I know you're like, why is a girl from Oakland over here? I'm going to tell you why in just a minute.
I gotta
No worries.
sneak in for you.
Key. She's working her magic here. I'm going to take off my mask. I hope y'all don't mind.
Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. It was really long. I'm going to keep cutting it down. But as you can tell, I'm a bit of a busybody. But it's a good thing. It's a busybody for the work that you all do. It's been great just listening to what you guys do. And so we're going to go on. Thank you. I'm going to go backwards. I think I have to go backwards. There we go. So good morning again. It is my pleasure to provide the keynote address this morning for the 2022 Public Space Summit organized by the San Francisco Parks Alliance. It is so nice to see people and be with people. I'm a people person and I have missed meeting in person, so this is actually my first meeting, so thank you. Parks, they should be created by the people and for the people. So I was born and raised in Oakland, California, and I still live in the East Bay. My father, who was born in Shreveport, Louisiana, moved with his mom and brothers to Bayview, Hunters Point, when he was 9 years old. I told you I'd tell you why I'm here. So my roots are also here in the Bayview. My grandmother was an owner of a small club in San Francisco, which featured blues and brews and good food, and I still love the blues. However, due to redevelopment, they were forced to leave their home and her business in San Francisco in the 50s, and they relocated to Russell City, which is now the Hayward Shoreline, and she took the blues and the brews and the good food there. So public space is the realm of community, and sometimes it is all some folks have to call home. Public space is not or should not be owned by anyone other than the people and their selected stewards. So I want to share with you today, briefly, the story of the Black Cultural Zone, in our role as a community steward, and our history of unapologetically claiming space for our community to experience joy and peace and wellness and love. And yes, that is the power of public space, to center the most vulnerable and to restore their worthiness in their eyes and in the hearts of the broader community. So who is the community, and how are they considered? And how are they engaged and embraced in public spaces? So I challenge you to consider these questions today during this summit and in your daily work in the public realm. So I got this right. Yes, look at me. All right. The Black Cultural Zone CDC was formed by the East Oakland Black Cultural Zone Collaborative. And that's important to know. It was formed by a group of artists who saw something happening in Oakland and saying there was a disappearance of a Black business presence in 2010 in Oakland. And they wanted to do something. And they really decided, we're just going to claim it. We're going to say there will be Black culture that will remain in Oakland. And they strove to build an ecosystem that really allows our people and our culture to thrive in our legacy community by all means. But there are barriers. The barrier we face is the rising cost of living amidst the stagnant or declining community wealth for legacy and current community members. The barriers to wealth building are really tied to disproportionately limited economic opportunity, which reflects decades of public and private disinvestment and centuries of other systemic and institutional trauma and barriers. However, despite the challenge of redevelopment and displacement and gentrification, we still have hope. So we have a vision. Our vision is for a robust and vibrant renaissance in our community, with vibrant, thriving Black arts and cultural and commercial areas and a really thriving economy, an ecosystem that's anchored by Black arts and culture and commerce, and collective power that assures our inalienable human right to love, to health, to wellness, to belonging, to power, to safety and self-determination. We are committed to disruption. We will disrupt the historic community and economic development model where only limited benefits have really accrued to some of the most vulnerable communities in our country, particularly legacy Black communities like East Oakland. Try this again. Ooh, yeah. Nope, wrong way. So how do we do that? Our model is the creation of Black cultural zone hubs as catalysts to really anchor our neighborhood so we can thrive. So now let's talk about parks. They are the quintessential example of a public space and public realm. The first Black cultural zone hub we developed is named Liberation Park, a name which the community gave it. And it is a catalyst. Hope has actually grown in our neighborhood from which I'm from. We are beginning to believe that we are capable of succeeding in our fight to remain in and return to our legacy community, despite its discovery as the new hot real estate market, and I'm a broker, so I'm a part of the problem, within the highly desired Bay Area. Hope and efficacy, these are the first and critical steps in our progress towards a thriving community. So everything, and it's a lot going on. If you have not been to Liberation Park, come on across the bridge. On Sundays we skate. But everything which happens at Liberation Park has been designed by the community. Our markets, our roller skating rink, our beautiful murals which decorate the interior and exterior of the space, our movie nights which features local filmmakers and Black filmmakers, the food which is offered there, and the messages which are relayed in the space that it is a safe Black space are designed by the community and adapted with community engagement. Our community meals and conversations, our collaborative partnerships and community steward programs keeps us centered to our people and connected to what they want. Our community engagement, economic, and neighborhood programs are designed to reach the broadest spectrum of residents and to responsibly address the varied needs and wants and challenges and desires of our people. Nope, I'm gonna figure this out today. My favorite recollection of how powerful this space is was when we installed a grass area within the park, and it didn't have grass when it started. We licensed this location from the city of Oakland and brought life to this site which had been abandoned for years and was an unsightly dumping ground in the heart of East Oakland. The first installation was a small grass area, really small, little triangle. It's still there, it's so cute. And on the first day after it was unveiled, it was a beautiful sunny day. And as I was running across the grass doing stuff, a young child grabbed my hand and insisted that I do what he was doing. He was laying on his back and watching the clouds. I hesitated because I had a lot to do. I was like, I got a lot to do. But the look on his face was pure joy and fascination and peace and calmness. So I laid down on the ground and he and I just watched the clouds pass by for a while. He was free. I was free at this moment. So I reflect on that connection to the simple, accessible, and beautiful moments that nature provides when we carefully but steadfastly claim space, plazas, places, hubs, on behalf of those who need it most, our young people, our residents who may not have that lush backyard garden or that second, third, or fourth home in the country or at the beach or near a lake. Our residents who are unhoused and living in the shanty towns that we pass and look the other way or become irritated at how it bothers us to see that. This baby who took my hand is why we should all do the work of ensuring public spaces are developed by and for the people. So I don't know his situation or that of his family, and I don't need to. I do know that the world is not as safe for young Black boys as it is for others. And the predictions for his life path are much more treacherous than for others who do not look like him. So if we all, and I know that we do, if we all want a future where this is not true for anyone, due to their background or their race or their gender or their economic situation, we must utilize parks and public spaces and the public realm for our community, and particularly the most vulnerable, under-resourced, and those who've been most traumatized, so they can experience joy and peace and wellness and love, because we should call them and see them and treat them as our beloved community. So green spaces, I did that right, did y'all see that? Yes. Green spaces, plazas, and squares are where communities should collectively exist equally, equitably, and restoratively. Some will need to step back their priorities and to support the beloved community. Some will need to invest more financial, strategic, and human resources so that our beloved community can be restored, resourced, and returned. I have been blessed to travel this country by train. Love the sleeper car and Amtrak. I shouldn't tell anybody, but woo, I love the Amtrak. So I've been blessed to travel this country by train. I've been blessed to visit Africa, and I am floored by the beauty of the green spaces I see. West Africa felt like a Garden of Eden. The denseness of the flora and the fauna was mind-blowing. And I wish that every beloved community member could experience what I did and what I do. As I travel the range of landscapes in this country, I envision how Native Americans, sometimes I see them when I close my eyes on that train, I see them there in between the trees, how they lived in harmony with Mother Earth. And I pray that we can find a pathway back to this harmony. I pray that my Ramaytush ancestors are pleased with our work and that they guide the San Francisco Parks Alliance work on this peninsula, where the Ramaytush experienced joy and peace and wellness and love for a time prior to the arrival of the Spanish, where they numbered approximately 1,400 persons and lived in 11 tribelets right here on this land. I want to acknowledge the initiatives of the San Francisco Parks Alliance, the Recs Department, all of you here today, from the Blue Greenway, the Crane Cove Park, Eagle Plaza, Greenhouse Project, India Basin, Let's Play SF, Moss Metamorphosis, Mural Left Mini Park, and Skybridge. I'm jealous. I need y'all in Oakland. Don't tell them I said that, but I love what you all do here. I really encourage you all here today and the Alliance to please, and I know that you do, elevate the beloved community and center their experiences to ensure their joy, their peace, their wellness, and their love. Let them direct your path. Listen to them and make sure that what you do causes no further harm and rather heals. This city, the state, and this country is built on a lot of pain for our Native and Indigenous loved ones, our African loved ones who were kidnapped from Eden and brought to till the soil and harness the green spaces to fuel the growth of this country's economy. These groups have been pushed and pulled, avoided, discarded, and abused under many names and in many places: redlining, urban redevelopment, war on drugs, and most recently, the disproportionate impact of the pandemic. So the beloved community needs your love. And the public parks and spaces and plazas and other realms can be a place for equity, justice, and anti-racism. The San Francisco Parks Alliance supports community groups in their efforts to beautify and improve their neighborhoods, but how do we define beauty? I define it as freedom. the ability for beloved community members to lay on their back and watch the clouds roll by in a space curated by stewards like the Black Cultural Zone that are created and cultivated by community whose focus is on beloved community members and their needs as the priority, who unapologetically respect and center their arts, their culture, their essence as the tool for justice and reparations. And as I come to a close before questions and answers, I leave you with these questions to explore today and in your tomorrows. Who is your beloved community? I do it. Look at that. What draws them to trust you enough to share with you their hopes and dreams and fears and concerns? We have built a Liberation Park experience in Oakland, which includes safety and security, because that's what they wanted. Art and culture, which resonates with them. Food that touches their soul. Music that makes them dance. Play and connection. When you go to Liberation Park, it's like a reunion. When you come together, there's laughter and warmth and memory and peace. I really love being there. And that's what you want everyone in your beloved community to feel. I really love being here. So when you love the beloved community in this way, you unlock their hopes and dreams. They start to take ownership of the public space in ways that you cannot imagine, cannot program for, and should do your best to support rather than try to control. Who says the music is too loud? Who says the performances are too risque? Who are you? Who are we to judge? So freedom for all requires that you decenter your needs and wants and ensure that everyone can truly breathe, relax, feel safe, feel loved, and just watch the clouds roll by on a sunny day. In their legacy community, where our collective goal should be for the beloved to be housed, employed, educated, and empowered. So thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Can we give her one more round of applause, because that was awesome. So most of you don't know me. I am Masika Hinson, the new Associate Director of Stewardship with the Parks Alliance. This is my 16th day on the job. So I'm here. We're gonna have a conversation with Carolyn. There are cards on your table, so we wanna do a question and answer session with her. So if you have questions for her, things that have come up for you as she was talking, feel free to write those on the cards, and then Philip will come around and take those from you, and he'll bring them up here to us, and we'll talk about it. We'll see what the questions are out there. So take the cards, and we'll get into the question and answer session. So I'm actually really happy to be talking with Carolyn today. I'm glad she's here because I also live in Oakland. So it was really cool to, when I saw the program and that Carolyn was going to join us, I was really happy about that, and love the Black Cultural Zone. I've been there a few times, not as many as I should, but I will say one of the things that was was always on my mind, because we're in this moment of COVID right now, but that I went to the park kind of when the pandemic felt like it was really, really strong going. And it was just for us, it was a nice time to get out. We were like, we want to be outside, we want to be around people, but also didn't feel comfortable being indoors. And it was really cool to have that space to go to. So I was kind of curious, is when COVID was really kind of raging around us, I mean, it's still here with us, but at that time, what were some of the challenges that you may have had with being able to have people gather in that space? And then how did you kind of overcome those challenges?
Great question. So our goal is to develop that site, and in fact, we have won the right to develop 120 affordable housing units and a market hall there in about 3 years. So it was always going to be a temporary site. We were negotiating in March of 2020. And then the pandemic hit, and for us, it was a blessing that it was an outdoor site. And, but there was, at the time, folks remember, you couldn't do anything outside. The one thing you could do was a certified farmer's market. And so that's what we did. That's how we started the Acoma Market, which wasn't necessarily in our plans, but to get our businesses in East Oakland a place to sell. You know me, well, maybe you don't know me, but it was like, okay, let's do it. Let's do a certified farmer's market. So we did that, and then subsequently, we started our outdoor movies. It was drive-in, no one got out of the car, and so we had to figure that out with FM antennas, et cetera. So we just look to respond, we ask questions, and we just do what the community says to really build a strong economy, which is important to a thriving community.
It's excellent. I love that. I also, for myself too, was thinking about when I was growing up, we came to visit my family in Oakland all the time, and I would go to the Eastmont Mall. Yeah. And like, I was thinking about like, that's where I was getting a lot of culture, because I'd go buy records there. If anyone knows what a record is, you probably don't, but vinyl records, music. But I was getting my culture there in that area, so it's really, again, nice to have that zone there. So we do have one question so far. I'm gonna ask this of Carolyn. So could you share a bit more about the role of stewards, volunteers versus paid staff? I can't read the rest of this, but share a bit about that.
So when we opened the park, it was really first to distribute hot meals, and we had people drive through, and that was in the beginning, and 100% of the folks there were volunteers sourced from the community. We've had over 300 volunteers in general, serving over 150,000 hot meals. We have subsequently started an ambassador program, and so we source from a lot of youth programs and from the community to have folks who welcome folks to the park for our events. So it's a mix of paid staff and volunteer staff. We also created something called the Neighborhood Messenger Program, trusted community members on a block, someone who's lived on the block for 5 years, everybody knows that one lady or man who's lived there forever, to pass out PPE, personal protective equipment, food and meals, et cetera. And we've had over 200 neighborhood messengers, bilingual messengers on every block connecting to the community. And so right now, yeah, we have 200 contractors. We found a way to stipend them, those who need it, but the volunteerism is essential. It leads to ambassadors, it leads to stewards, and now we're developing something called the EBON Leadership Program, because folks are really more connected since the pandemic, and they want to understand, why is there trash in my neighborhood? Why don't we get the services here? And we're moving them from that volunteer work to really being a part of the community and knowing that this public money is your money, and it's for you to say what you need to have your elected officials truly represent you. So it's a continuum that we didn't expect, but we responded.
That's awesome. I love that. Thank you, Carolyn. What methods or tools did you use to ask the community what needs were most important to center liberation in the park?
Yeah, that's a great question. So again, the collaborative formed in 2010, and they formed because there was a group of folks who were concerned about what they were seeing. And they've been directing ever since. We've grown the collaborative from 5 nonprofit organizations to over 30. They're Black-led, Black on Purpose, they're ally-led, et cetera, who we meet regularly. We meet weekly with the organizations, and they pull from their community. We have community dinner, and we have community breakfast, where we literally listen to the community every 5th Friday and Saturday. And at all of our events, we have a community listening booth. We also reach out to the range of our community, from the conservatives to the very progressives to the motorcycle clubs. Our goal is that if we walk on a corner liquor store, there's a guy or gal hanging out. If I say to you, Liberation Park, what do you want? They'll know what it is, and they'll know how to say it. And so it's got to be really, really broad. I have to hear it in church. I have to hear it at the biker club. I have to hear it at the event. I have to hear it at the school. And so we spread out with a network of partners, people, and resources.
That's great. Something I was thinking about when you were talking earlier, okay, great, is you mentioned the Native Americans that inhabit and those that inhabited the land before, and thinking about like with the zone, like what are your connections to the Ohlone in the area there?
Yeah, so every hub space that we build by default has an easement for the Native tribes, because it is their land. Whatever you want to do here, whenever you want to do it, however you want to do it, please, you are welcome. And we also support that as we develop our actual projects, paying the land tax. So again, these tribes are getting the financial resources that they need. And then in the third, we have something called the Flatlands Alliance with our indigenous cultural markets, where we are all coming together. You know, you may use the yam one way, we use it another way, but I think food brings everyone together. And so we're planning a series of night markets to really connect and share culture. Oakland is very, very diverse, and we come together for food and culture and laughing and dancing. And once you, and camping, I love camping, but that's a whole nother story. But once you break down those sort of single stories, to say a phrase and really learn other folks, you really can make connections. But again, this land belongs to the folks that have not ceded this land. And so we respect that.
Camping, where do you camp?
Everywhere, I love camping.
Is there, do you have a favorite spot somewhere in the,
You
the Bay
know,
Area
it's,
here?
oh, it's not, well, there's so many camping spots. I've been camping for 20 years, and in fact, I'm about to go get me a new little teardrop. So everywhere. I haven't been to all of the sites, all the parks, all the recs. The dunes, the Pajaro Dunes, those are my favorite places. Angel Island,
Okay.
yeah, I could go on, yes.
Wait, what's a teardrop? You mentioned a teardrop.
A trailer, a pull trailer,
okay.
yeah.
All right,
We need
great.
to take you camping, girl.
Yeah, I just got a new tent. I did just camp, Carolyn.
I can't do
but
tents,
I
I'm
know
too
the
old for that, yeah. But I need a trailer.
I gotta find out about this teardrop. That's great. Okay, so we got a couple of other questions here from the audience. Let me see. I think they're similar. So, thoughts on green? Give me a moment. Okay, I'm gonna read this one and see here. So how do communities of color navigate gentrification and building bridges between longtime residents' needs and the wants and desires of newcomers? This other question is also related to gentrification, but it's asking what your thoughts are on green gentrification, which I don't know a lot about that, so yeah.
Great question. One of the, I'm born and raised in East Oakland. I wound up moving to Alameda because my mom wanted to live in Alameda because when we were younger, we were never given the ability to buy a house there. It was always denied. And so it was like, fine, Mom, we'll move over. I can't afford to move back into Oakland now. But one of the things I said as I began to hear the stories of things like the lake and people calling the police on folks barbecuing and people calling the police on churches having choir practice, I was like, well, that's our fault. We didn't invite our guests in and tell them when they came to our home, this is how we roll here. You know, when people come to your house, you say, you know, we either take off the shoes at the door or we don't, or we eat with forks or we don't. So it's our job to help folks who come from all over the country, all over the world, to come to the Bay, San Francisco and Oakland, like this is where you're coming to, right? So if you don't welcome them, greet them, and help them understand the practices, it's also a part your fault. And for those who make the errors of calling the police on people barbecuing at the lake, which is just ludicrous from a East Oakland or Oaklander. It's like, what? That's what we do. We barbecue at the lake. Yeah. You know, you have to understand that they are also here because they may have been driven here with high prices, and they are open to being able to be educated about where they are. So it's our job to create a welcome center of sorts to help people understand who you are and to give them an opportunity to address their errors of ways when you call the police on the church choir and have some forgiveness, but also some re-education about where they are. So we got to tell our story everywhere we go. We also have to be open to new folks, and new folks have to be open to learning to us. And in Oakland, we definitely gonna let you know.
Yes. Yes. Because, you know, Barbecue Becky, that was
I didn't want to
national
say it,
news.
so I wasn't trying to,
No,
you know,
I was
she's
gonna,
a
I have to
person.
say it because, I mean,
Yeah.
we got to
But a
remember
part
that.
of that is like you just don't know. You know, wherever you might have come from, you don't call the police.
Yeah, exactly. That's great, Carolyn. Thank you for
You're
that. Hold on a second, y'all. Talk about the dollar. How do you use the lessons learned and the community voices from Liberation Park to advocate for the city to fund long-term projects and plans, parks, housing, transportation, et cetera? So really, folks wanting to hear about how you develop your relationship with the city government.
Yeah, that's a great, someone asked me that the other day. I said a part of it is understanding politics, elected officials and how that works. And in your district, you definitely should be friends with the folks who are elected to represent you. You have to understand the model of the city government and what control and power council has versus the mayor has versus the administrator, and making sure that you're conversating with all three of them to make sure you get what you need. But in terms of politics, politicians, they love wins, and they will help you if you can present a coherent, cogent plan that can be successful, and success breeds success. And so, I used to walk around with this golden book. It literally glitters. I call it the magic book. And I would be like, I got all kind of plans in here for this park. You see this park right here? It's going to be a roller skating rink and a movie theater and all this stuff. And they were like, I think she's crazy, but I'm not sure. But now that we've had some success, you have to leverage that success. So now I have an even brighter idea for another place. We're going to have a beach, by the way, in Oakland, but let's not, don't tell nobody, right? But you can use those and to expand that, because again, elected officials want wins, not just for their campaign, but for their legacy. And cities need wins. They need to compete, right, to bring folks there for the sales tax revenue. So when you can align what you're doing with what the city, the elected officials, and those who control the funds have, you can be successful. Foundations want to give because they want to see true impact, to solve a problem that we have. You have to be the solution. And then you can grow that for more things.
You just mentioned foundations, and so that's okay. I was previously working at a foundation, so I'm always like really curious about funding, and curious for you all. Are you finding a lot of support from funders in the Bay Area, or have you been able to look outside the Bay Area, outside of Oakland, or like where's that coming from?
Our first grant came from a bank, and they have their reasons for giving, and I think we have been very successful. When they hired me, they didn't tell me that they only had $20,000 in the bank, and I had to raise my own salary, but it's okay. But we started small. And we've been able to get support from, I would say, community foundations, statewide foundations, and they start small, and again, with success, you'll get more. Ultimately, foundations, I know they have a lot of asks. It's important to support organizations like ours with long-term, multi-year, unrestricted grants, but I understand it has to be built, again, on trust, that you can deliver what you said you were going to deliver, and when you do so, that they give you the freedom to then expand and explore. I've got my magic book, and now I can open it up and say, let's try the next project, because this one was successful. And success is dependent on really giving the community what they need and opening up people's eyes to what is important and necessary for all of us to feel free.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, and I do think funders are starting to change a lot, where the funding is less restricted. The reporting processes aren't as like strenuous as they have been. So I'm feeling good about you and others doing these great community projects.
Not another report is my slogan.
Right.
But okay.
Exactly. Okay, so we've got one last question. What advice do you have for other people who are hoping to affect the change that you have and continue to achieve?
Yeah. I think that everything is cyclical. There are ups and there are downs, but if the trajectory is positive and forward, that's the key. I think you have to have a vision that resonates for the masses and not for the few. I think you have to have passion. I think you ultimately have to have love and empathy for those who have what you have and those who don't have what you have, and know that no one deserves to be unhoused. No one deserves to not have all the things that you have. You are not special, you are blessed, and you should share those blessings with others and fight for that.
Yes, give Carolyn a round of applause for that. It's great, thank you. Thank you so much, Carolyn.
Thank you everyone.
Isn't CJ great? Let's get over GA one more time. Thank you so much. Glad you enjoyed that, and if you're ever over in Oakland, you definitely should take a stop by and take a tour. It's amazing what she and her team have had happen over there. So, and we always say, San Francisco always is like, oh, people come here to learn from San Francisco. This is where San Francisco can learn from Oakland. Yes, 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 yes. Housekeeping things. I just want to, and as we head into our next events for the day, in this auditorium will be the panel on India Basin and the Equitable Development Plan. So if you're planning on going to that, you can stay right here. In the garden room, a session on fundraising 101 will happen, and you can head there. In the rec room, a session on social media best practices. In the resource tables in the gallery, we'll be there all day, so make sure you take a swing by and look at that, and then look at the Faces and Places posters that are in there as well. Amazing projects that have been on social media throughout the last year. And then we'll have lunch and remarks from Mayor London Breed. Will take place at noon in the courtyard. So do what you need to do, and the sessions will be starting in approximately 7 minutes. Thanks all.